Part 1. The Whistler's first notice was in the late autumn of 1995 when rumors of the Whistler first started swirling around the city. It began in the decaying borough of Ardenwood, a forgotten part of town where streetlights flickered and the rusting train tracks seemed to echo a history no one cared to remember. The Whispers claimed that, on certain nights, just before midnight, a strange whistling could be heard weaving through the alleys and broken streets. Some said it was a ghost, others said it was something far worse, something human, but not entirely right. Nina, a young woman with a taste for urban exploration, was fascinated by the stories. She wasn't afraid of ghosts, and though Ardenwood had its dangers, she felt a strange pull to investigate. After all, she had heard so many urban legends and this one didn't sound any worse than the others. Her friends refused to accompany her, spooked by tales of people who vanished after hearing the whistle. That only made her more determined. The first night she ventured into Ardenwood, nothing happened. She explored the graffiti-covered factories, snapped some photos, and left without so much as a chill. But the second night, as she crept through an alley overgrown with weeds, she heard a faint, off-key whistle that floated just above the hum of the city. She paused, straining to listen. It was a tune she didn't recognize, lilting and inconsistent, almost playful, but with an undertone that made her stomach tighten. The sound was coming closer. She glanced around, expecting to see someone, a man perhaps, out for a late-night walk, but the alley was empty. The air felt suddenly cold, colder than it should have been for that time of year. Nina's pulse quickened. The whistle stopped. In the sudden silence, she could hear her own breathing, shallow and quick. Then, from somewhere behind her, a soft tap, tap, tap echoed on the cracked pavement. She spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs. Nothing, but that didn't stop her from running. She bolted out of the alley and didn't stop until she reached the edge of Ardenwood, her hands trembling as she fumbled to unlock her car. As she sped away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. That night, she couldn't sleep. The eerie whistle haunted her dreams, looping in disjointed notes. When she woke, her ears still seemed to hum with the memory of it, but it wasn't a dream. She was sure of that. She decided not to go back. Part 2. The missing people. Over the next few weeks, Ardenwood became the center of strange and disturbing events. People started disappearing. At first, it was just a couple of homeless men, individuals no one really missed. But then a well-known businessman, a pillar of the local community, vanished after attending a charity event near the outskirts of Ardenwood. His car was found parked neatly along the curb, keys still in the ignition. His phone and wallet were untouched. There was no sign of a struggle. The only thing anyone recalled was that he had been seen glancing over his shoulder, as if he heard something or someone. By now, the city was buzzing with speculation about the Whistler. A few reporters had ventured into Ardenwood, but none stayed past dark. They interviewed local residents, those who still remained, and pieced together fragments of a story. The whistling always began just before midnight, and if you heard it more than once, you were never seen again. Nina followed the stories closely, unable to shake the memory of that eerie sound. Her experience seemed like a close call, but it wasn't enough to satisfy her curiosity. She started reading online forums, deep in the dark corners of the internet where conspiracy theorists and paranormal enthusiasts debated the true nature of the Whistler. Some claimed he was the spirit of a railroad worker, crushed by the iron wheels of a train long forgotten. Others believed it was something far older, a demon that had taken up residence in the decaying bones of Ardenwood, feeding off the fear of the living. But there was one post that made her skin crawl. It was a brief account, written by someone named Watcher42, who claimed to have lost a brother to the Whistler. The post described the same whistling, the same slow tapping that seemed to follow the sound. But then Watcher42 wrote something that made Nina's blood run cold. If you hear the whistle more than once, it's already too late. You can run, but he'll always find you. He loves to chase. Nina's hand shook as she scrolled down, her breath catching in her throat. The last comment on the thread was from Watcher42 as well. It simply said, "He's coming for me now."
Part 3. The unseen pursuer began to feel as though something was watching her. At first, it was a fleeting sensation, easily dismissed. But as the days passed, she couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on her whenever she was alone. Walking to her car after work, she caught herself glancing behind her, scanning the shadows. At night, the wind outside her apartment took on a strange, whispering quality. Sometimes she thought she could hear faint whistling, though her logical mind told her it was just the sound of the wind squeezing through the cracks in the old window frames. She had almost convinced herself that it was all in her head when, late one evening, she heard the sound again. It was subtle at first, almost indistinguishable from the sounds of the city outside her window. But then the notes grew louder, the melody clearer. She froze in her chair, her eyes wide, heart pounding in her chest. The whistle was the same disjointed, playful tune she had heard in Ardenwood. Nina slowly stood up, inching toward the window. She peeked through the blinds. The street below was empty. No one was walking the sidewalks, no cars moved. But the whistle continued, weaving through the still night air. Her phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. All it said was, "Don't look."